3:30 p.m. sharp. Across Lebanon, 5,000 pagers receive the same signal. In Tel Aviv, an operator watches the timer count down. 10 years of infiltration, one signal, 30 minutes of controlled detonations. This is not war. This is engineering. September 17, 2024. Beirut's southern neighborhoods pulse with ordinary life. Traffic chokes the arterial roads. Market vendors shout prices over the noise. A Hezbollah fighter checks his watch, then feels the vibration against his hip. He pulls the pager from his belt. Error message. Strange. He presses the button to clear it. The device explodes in his hands with surgical precision. 3 grams of PTN, calibrated to injure the holder while minimizing collateral damage. At that exact moment, across Lebanon, Syria, and parts of Damascus, hundreds more devices detonate in synchronized sequence. This is the culmination of a decade-long operation, and it begins with a single question. How do you turn a communication device into a weapon without anyone noticing until it's too late? The answer requires reverse engineering the problem. Start with the target. Hezbollah in 2024 is not a ragtag militia. It's a parallel state within Lebanon, funded to the tune of $700 million annually by Iran, with Syrian backing adding weapons and logistical support. It controls seats in parliament, operates its own television network, Al-Manar, and maintains schools, hospitals, and most critically, an armed wing estimated at 100,000 fighters. That's larger than the Lebanese regular army. For Israel, facing an enemy of this scale means conventional warfare is inadequate. You need a symmetric advantage. You need intelligence that penetrates so deep, the enemy doesn't realize they're compromised until the trap springs. The operational timeline stretches back to 2014, a full decade before the September explosions. This is not improvisation. This is patient, methodical infiltration of the most sensitive system an armed organization possesses, its communications infrastructure. The first test case wasn't pagers at all. It was tactical radios. Israeli engineers designed battery packs with concealed explosive charges, small enough to pass inspection, powerful enough to be lethal at the moment of activation. The engineering challenge was precise. Create a device that functions normally for years, withstands field conditions, dust, water, impact, and detonates only when triggered remotely. Over 16,000 of these modified radios were sold to Hezbollah through carefully constructed supply chains. The organization bought them, distributed them, used them in operations. For years, they sat dormant. Israel watched, waited, refined the technology, and observed how comfortable the enemy became with equipment they believed was secure. But radios had a limitation. They weren't always on the fighter. They stayed in vehicles, in command posts, in storage. For everyday communication, for constant contact across the organization, militants increasingly turned to pagers. Cheap, simple, long battery life, no internet connection, no GPS tracking. From a counterintelligence perspective, pagers looked like the perfect low-tech solution. That assessment became the vulnerability Israel would exploit. The technical specifications of the operation are telling. The explosive charge was approximately 3 grams of PETN, pentaerythritol tetranitrate, one of the most powerful and stable explosives available. It was embedded directly into the battery pack, shaped and positioned so that standard security checks, including disassembly and X-ray scans, would fail to detect it. According to sources cited by the New York Times, these implants could pass through airport security without raising flags. The charge was tested extensively on ballistic dummies to calibrate the blast radius. The goal was injury to the person holding the device, with minimal harm to bystanders within a 1-meter radius. This was surgical violence, engineered to precise tolerances. But the explosive is only half the equation. The other half is getting the target to carry it willingly. That requires theater, commercial theater on a global scale. As one former Mossad officer, identified only as Gabriel in a 60 Minutes interview, explained, "We create a pretend world, shell companies over shell companies. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay, we are the directors, we are the producers. The operation constructed an entire fictitious supply chain. Shell companies were layered to obscure any trace back to Israeli intelligence. One of these shells was BAC Consulting, cited in multiple reports as a front used to funnel the devices into Lebanon. The brand name on the pagers was Gold Apollo, a real Taiwanese manufacturer. But Gold Apollo itself had no knowledge it was dealing with Mossad. The company was used as cover, its branding and reputation exploited to lend legitimacy to the operation. Israel then introduced a middleman, a salesperson known to Hezbollah, someone trusted within their procurement networks. The first batches of pagers arrived as gifts or promotional upgrades, free or sold at attractive prices. This is classic penetration strategy. Establish trust, demonstrate value, make the target dependent on the product. Marketing materials were produced, brochures printed, demo stands set up at trade shows. The pagers were advertised as robust, dustproof, waterproof, with long battery life. Every selling point was genuine except one, the hidden payload. Hezbollah ordered approximately 5,000 units. They distributed them across their command structure, from senior operatives to field fighters. The devices became integral to daily operations, and every single one was a remote detonated weapon waiting for activation. The operational security required for this is extraordinary. Consider the logistics: manufacturing the devices in a covert facility, ensuring quality control so they function normally for months, creating believable commercial packaging, maintaining the cover story across multiple countries, and preventing any leak that would alert Hezbollah to the compromise. One slip, one intercepted shipment, one suspicious fighter who opens the wrong battery compartment, and the entire operation collapses. The fact that it succeeded for years indicates not just technical sophistication, but also deep penetration of Hezbollah's procurement processes, likely including human intelligence assets who guided the purchasing decisions toward the compromised devices. By early September 2024, the pieces were in place. Thousands of pagers distributed, thousands of radios already embedded in the organization. The question was timing. Why activate now? The context is crucial. On October 7, 2023, Hamas launched a devastating attack on southern Israel. The next day, Hezbollah opened a second front from the north, firing from Lebanese territory. Over the following year, they launched approximately 1,100 rockets at northern Israel. Entire towns were evacuated. More than 60,000 Israelis were displaced from their homes. Israel found itself fighting a two-front war: Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in the north. By September 2024, the strategic calculus had shifted. Degrading Hezbollah's capabilities was no longer a future contingency. It was an immediate operational necessity. The decision to activate was made at the highest levels of Israeli intelligence and military command. The date was set, September 17th. The time, 3:30 p.m. The method, a seemingly innocuous message sent through the pager network. You have an important message. To read it, press two buttons simultaneously. This ensured the device would be in the user's hands, in clear view at the moment of detonation. The signal was transmitted. Across Lebanon, in Beirut, in the Bekaa Valley, in the southern border regions, and even in parts of Syria, pagers began to vibrate. Fighters reached for them, pressed the buttons, and the devices exploded. The first reports were confused. A single explosion in southern Beirut, then another, then dozens. Within minutes, it was clear this was not a technical malfunction. It was a coordinated attack. Panic spread rapidly. People threw their pagers into the streets. Hospitals were overwhelmed. More than 150 medical facilities across Lebanon reported casualties flooding in. The Ministry of Health issued an urgent advisory: dispose of all pagers immediately. Medical staff were called in for a national emergency. For Hezbollah, the communication system they trusted as a safe alternative to smartphones had collapsed in under an hour. What was supposed to protect them from Israeli surveillance had become the instrument of their destruction. The explosions continued in waves for approximately 30 minutes. This was deliberate pacing, not a single mass detonation. The staggered timing maximized psychological impact, created sustained chaos, and overwhelmed emergency response systems. Among the casualties was Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, injured when his pager detonated. This was not collateral damage. It was a message. Israel had penetrated so deeply that even diplomatic personnel carrying the devices were not safe. No one officially claimed responsibility in the first hours, but the fingerprints were unmistakable. The precision, the scale, the years of preparation, all pointed to Mossad. And for those watching closely, there was a clear operational signature. The explosion targeted only the person holding the device. Bystanders within 1 meter might be injured, but the blast was shaped to minimize broader casualties. This was assassination engineering, warfare conducted with the precision of a surgical strike. Exactly 24 hours later, the second wave hit. September 18th, around 5 p.m., radios began exploding. The same coordinated pattern, the same calculated timing, but this time targeting a different segment of Hezbollah's communications network. The devices were Icon ICV-82 portable radios, widely used by fighters in the field. Later, the manufacturer in Japan stated that production of this model had ceased years earlier, suggesting the units in Hezbollah's possession were counterfeits, likely the modified versions Israel had embedded into the supply chain a decade ago. The explosions occurred during funerals for fighters killed in the pager attacks the previous day, symbolically devastating. The enemy was not allowing recovery time. The operation was relentless. Residential buildings caught fire. Cars and motorcycles exploded. Civil defense services logged more than 70 incidents across Lebanon, from small shops to a battery warehouse that went up in flames. Near the American University of Beirut, a suspicious device was found in an ambulance. The Lebanese army conducted a controlled detonation on the spot. Hezbollah supporters blocked journalists from filming. The Lebanese Red Cross deployed 30 ambulances to handle the surge. And through it all, Hezbollah's communications infrastructure continued to collapse in real time. The strategic impact extended beyond the immediate casualties. The organization's command and control system was shattered. Fighters could no longer trust their equipment. Paranoia spread. Who else was compromised? What other devices had been tampered with? Reports emerged of biometric fingerprint scanners also exploding, though it remained unclear whether these had been rigged in advance or simply caught fire in the chain of secondary blasts. The fog of war was thick, but the central fact was undeniable. Hezbollah had lost operational coherence. The human cost was severe. Official reports confirmed several dozen deaths, with the wounded numbering in the thousands. The majority were fighters, exactly as Israeli planners intended. But the injured list also included civilians, minor affiliates, people peripherally connected to the organization who happened to be near someone carrying a pager or radio when it detonated. This raises the ethical question at the heart of the operation. What are the acceptable boundaries of targeted killing when the weapon is distributed indiscriminately and activated remotely? Gabriel, the former Mossad officer interviewed on 60 Minutes, articulated the strategy plainly. The goal wasn't to kill Hezbollah fighters. If he's dead, he's dead. But if he's wounded, he has to be taken to the hospital, treated. Resources must be spent. And these people become living proof across Lebanon. It's better not to mess with us. The logic is coldly pragmatic. A wounded fighter is a greater burden than a dead one. He requires medical care, drains resources, and serves as a visible reminder of the operation's reach. This is psychological warfare layered onto kinetic action. The explosions were physical, but the intended impact was psychological. The enemy should fear their own equipment. There are unconfirmed reports that some of the blasts occurred in the presence of Hassan Nasrallah himself, Hezbollah's Secretary General. He was allegedly in a bunker with close aides when several pagers detonated nearby, the shockwave knocking men to the ground within his line of sight. 2 days after the attacks, Nasrallah delivered a televised address. Those who had followed his fiery rhetoric for years immediately noticed the change. His tone was flat, restrained, almost defeated. Gabriel observed, "If you looked into his eyes, he was already defeated." His own fighters saw a broken man. That became a turning point in the war. But the operation did not go entirely according to plan. According to Turkish media, Turkey's National Intelligence Agency intercepted a second planned shipment just days later. At Istanbul's airport, a cargo transfer containing 300 pagers and 700 explosive charges destined for Lebanon was seized. Inspectors discovered the concealed explosives and highly flammable liquids inside. By stopping the shipment, Turkish authorities prevented a potential third wave of detonations and likely saved hundreds of lives. The interdiction also revealed the scale of Israel's ambitions. This was not a one-time strike, but a sustained campaign designed to systematically dismantle Hezbollah's communications. In the aftermath, Israel escalated rapidly. Massive airstrikes targeted Hezbollah positions across Lebanon. The campaign peaked on September 27, 2024, when Israeli fighter jets struck an underground command center in the Dahieh district of Beirut. Hassan Nasrallah was killed in the strike. The death of Hezbollah's leader, combined with the communications collapse from the pager and radio explosions, broke the organization's ability to sustain coordinated resistance. 2 months later, both sides agreed to a ceasefire, though sporadic clashes and violations continued. Was Hezbollah destroyed? Gabriel's answer in his interview was blunt: no. The operation delivered a severe blow to the chain of command, lowered morale, forced the organization to seek a truce, but the structure as a whole did not vanish. Parts of its apparatus survived. The network attempted to rebuild. Even so, Israel achieved many of its main objectives. Hezbollah's offensive capability was crippled. Its leadership was decapitated. Its fighters were demoralized, and the strategic threat to northern Israel was significantly reduced. But the cost in precision and collateral damage remains contested. Approximately 4,000 people were injured during the attacks. How many were actual Hezbollah fighters versus civilians or minor affiliates far removed from military decisions? The line is not always clear. A fighter's family member who happens to be nearby when a pager explodes. A civilian working in a shop frequented by militants. A child in the wrong place at the wrong moment. These are the unavoidable calculations of remote warfare, where the weapon cannot distinguish between the target and those around them. The global reaction was divided. For some, this was a masterful intelligence operation, a demonstration of Israel's technological superiority and willingness to strike its enemies with precision. For others, it was an act bordering on terrorism, the indiscriminate distribution of explosive devices that detonated without regard for who might be harmed in the blast radius. International law on the use of booby traps is murky when applied to military-grade operations disguised as consumer products. The pagers were not landmines left in a field. They were communication devices sold through commercial channels, carried by individuals who believed they were secure. In February 2025, during a trip to the United States, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly gave President Donald Trump a commemorative golden pager as a gift. In February 2025, during a trip to the United States, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly gave President Donald Trump a commemorative golden pager as a gift. According to reports, Trump replied, "That was a great operation." The exchange encapsulates the political dimension of the attack. For Israel's allies, it was a tactical success. For its critics, it was evidence of extrajudicial killing on a mass scale. The technical lessons of the operation are already being absorbed by intelligence agencies worldwide. The concept is scalable. Any device with a battery and circuitry can theoretically be modified. Smartphones, laptops, even electric vehicles. The pager operation demonstrated that supply chain infiltration, combined with patient long-term planning, can turn consumer technology into a weapon. The implications for global security are profound. Trust in commercial electronics is now a vulnerability. Every device must be assumed potentially compromised until proven otherwise. For Hezbollah, the lesson was existential. The shift from smartphones to pagers was driven by a belief that simpler technology equals greater security. That belief was exploited. The organization's counterintelligence logic, avoid digital tracking by avoiding digital devices, became the pathway for its own destruction. The irony is sharp. The attempt to evade surveillance created the conditions for the most devastating intelligence strike in the group's history. The operation also revealed the depth of Israel's human intelligence networks. Penetrating the supply chain required more than technical skill. It required knowing who Hezbollah's procurement officers were, which companies they trusted, which salespeople had credibility within the organization. That level of insight suggests years of cultivated assets, moles within Hezbollah or its logistics networks, individuals who guided purchasing decisions toward the compromised devices without arousing suspicion. This is espionage at its most patient and most ruthless. Looking forward, the pager operation sets a new standard for hybrid warfare. It combines elements of cyber operations, supply chain attacks, and kinetic strikes into a single integrated campaign. The boundary between peacetime intelligence gathering and wartime action has blurred. The devices were embedded during peacetime, activated during conflict. The preparation phase lasted a decade. The execution phase lasted 30 minutes. This is the new calculus of modern conflict. Extended preparation, instantaneous impact. For the fighters who survived, the psychological scars run deep. Trust in equipment is foundational to military operations. When that trust is shattered, when the tools you rely on to communicate become the weapons used against you, the impact extends beyond the physical injuries. Every device becomes suspect. Every message becomes a potential trigger. The operational paralysis this creates is, in many ways, more damaging than the explosions themselves. Israel's intelligence community has long operated on the principle of preemptive action. Strike the enemy before they strike you. The pager operation is the apotheosis of that doctrine. It was not defensive. It was not reactive. It was the culmination of years of offensive intelligence work, designed to degrade an enemy's capabilities before they could be fully deployed. Whether this approach is justified depends on one's perspective on the broader conflict. For Israel, facing existential threats from multiple fronts, such operations are seen as necessary survival measures. For critics, they represent a dangerous precedent where the line between intelligence operations and acts of war becomes indistinguishable. The final question is ethical, not technical. If a nation has the capability to conduct such an operation, should it? The pagers were distributed widely. The activation signal was indiscriminate. The only targeting mechanism was possession of the device. If a fighter handed his pager to a family member, if a device was in a crowded market when it detonated, if a child picked one up off the ground, the outcome was the same. The explosive did not distinguish. This is the core dilemma of remote warfare. Precision in engineering does not guarantee precision in outcome. The operation succeeded by the metrics Israel set. Hezbollah was crippled, its communications were destroyed, its leadership was killed, the threat to northern Israel was reduced. But the cost in lives injured, in global perception, in the precedent set for future conflicts, remains a subject of intense debate. What is certain is this: the pager operation will be studied in intelligence academies for decades. It represents the frontier of what is possible when technology, patience, and ruthless strategic thinking converge. Whether it represents the future of warfare or a dangerous escalation into territory where the rules of engagement no longer apply, history will judge. For now, it stands as a testament to what happens when a decade of infiltration meets 30 minutes of execution. Precision and the price of time.